Hello, everybody. Looks like we've got 3 people so far. If you're listening, if you can hear me, um, we'll give everybody just a few minutes to join, whoever may be joining. Thanks, Monica, for the thumbs up emoji there. Or actually, Lashidra. Sorry. I don't know how do you do the thumb that moves? Figure that out. Huh. Oh, there we go. Cool. All right.
Right at the bottom. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get the mute button. Right at the bottom.
Yeah. I didn't realize that they moved. They used to not move, but that's cool.
And I'm sorry. I'm a coach and I teach, so I'm gonna have this on mute.
Hey,
I'm
no
sorry.
worries. No worries. What do you coach real quick?
Dallas ISD, Seagoville,
Awesome. And
and
what sport?
this is actually football. So I'm like a extra coach out here. They
Nice.
be just sticking people. I hate to say that. No,
Well,
no, no, no.
I'll pretend like I'm not a neuropsychologist and that brain injuries.
Oh, yeah. We a lot of kids have concussions, and we be to
Yeah,
make sure the parents like, hey, didn't
yeah,
check y'all. Oh no, they'll just go home and sleep it off. No, don't let
yeah.
them go to sleep at all.
It's kind of scary sometimes, but hey, but no worries at all. You do you. Just listen in, whatever you can do, and if you need to run, no big deal because all this is getting recorded. Okay, so we're all good. Um, well, it's a couple minutes past, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time and hopefully get the ball rolling here a little bit so we can get more familiar with the class and really truly tonight is kind of on the lighter side. Um, we will talk a little bit about brain stuff and neurodevelopment, but it won't be too in depth, and we probably won't spend the whole hour doing that tonight. But moving forward, you can anticipate us spending for sure the hour that we've got. And really and truly, this is going to be more about your time to ask questions related to the content that we're covering, um, and hopefully facilitate a little bit more of applying this stuff, all of this information to real world context for you. So um, for those who have not had me as a professor before, um, I am the hardest professor here at Amberton. Usually, only about 10% of people pass my classes. I'm just kidding, guys. That's a joke. Everybody, everybody's eyes got real big there for a second. Um, no, it's these. I teach this class and the adult psychopathology course as well. And it sounds like it's a really, really difficult class, and that you're about to have to, you know, step up to the major leagues here. The good news is that while that is while that is kind of true, um, you've got the rest of your career to learn this stuff. And in fact, what you're learning right now is going to change over time. So you're going to have to just keep learning it over and over and over again. And there's no such thing as anybody having all this stuff perfectly memorized or perfectly known, because it is at present a lot still unknown. Um, just to let you know, if you are feeling overwhelmed in this class at any point, please know that that is a common experience for this class, and not because I want you to feel that way, and I wish I could prevent you from feeling that way, but there really is more information here that we're going to cover than what you're going to have time to actually go into the depth that you'll eventually need to. Okay. That's kind of like grad school in general, anyway. It's like here are 7 books that you got to read, for this one class in 10 weeks and write papers on all that kind of stuff and pretend like you know it all by the end. Um, don't worry, you're not gonna memorize everything. You're not gonna learn everything that you need to know, but hopefully, and my goal for you is that you'll be able to walk away from this class feeling more confident about diagnostics from a psychiatric standpoint in kids and adolescents, as well as understanding the strengths and limitations of the DSM-5 TR text revision, um, um, and then being able to apply that knowledge in a meaningful way, even if you don't plan to diagnose, even if you are, very against diagnosing, um, or even don't have the capacity to as a school counselor. So, with all that said, I'm really laid back. And we were just talking about it in my counseling assessment class. I am on the Myers Briggs, I'm a P. Most of y'all are probably J's on the Myers Briggs, which is awesome because y'all are super organized. And I'm going to do everything I can to not drive y'all bananas with my lack of J. But at the same time, I would encourage you that the more you can balance between a J and a P on the Myers Briggs, um, it'll help you as a counselor because there's a lot of things that are open ended and ambiguous about counseling, as you're probably already familiar. Um, and For those who didn't have a chance to watch the intro video, everybody uh, at least see that, or at least see that that's an option. Awesome. I'm sorry, it was really kind of awkward because I was trying to figure out how to use that program. I'll try to be funnier, I promise. That's not even close to how funny I can really be. So just you can wait on that. I've got a lot of good dad jokes. I've got a 9 and a 6 year old, so trust me, I've got plenty of dad jokes, and they still think I'm funny. So uh, I know they're good. Um, but every week, my hope and intent is to give you at least about a 5-10 minute like crash course over some of the topics that we're covering that week, in an extra video like that. And I'll probably use the PowerPoint slides to do that. If not just the PowerPoint slides, some other material as well. But not just to go over those topics, but to really talk about my own personal experience clinically with the different diagnoses, and just the stuff that you won't find in the DSM-5. That's kind of my hope is to provide some tips there. So with that said, let's talk about your 30-page paper that's due next week. Let's see, we get the syllabus. Everybody's smiling, everybody's laughing as if that's a joke. Because it is, but I mean, maybe not. I mean, I could, if anybody, please raise your hand if you would like to write a 30-page paper. Nobody. What is this, grad school? Okay. All right. All right. Please raise your hand if you'd like to read a 30-page paper as a professor. Not even me, folks. Not even me. Okay. That's right. We're not going to have 30-page papers in here. First of all, because half of it's going to be bullet points. Is what you're going to try to do is do bullet points. Don't be writing bullet points in papers in grad school. Secondly, I care more about you learning in this class than I do about you just doing busy work. And one of the best ways that I've tried to come up with is to get you to do these weekly quizzes. Okay. So I'm going to pull up your syllabus. I think it's syllabus. Syllabi is plural. For this class, you will have a total of 3 grades, and there we go. You have a midterm, a final exam, and 8 weekly quizzes that are worth 5 points each, all of which are multiple choice. And guess what? They're due at the very last day of class. And I appreciate that heart, Lashidra. Believe it or not, I've actually had the feedback. I've had the feedback before. Dr. Armstrong really shouldn't make all the stuff due at the end of the class because it was too hard for me to not procrastinate. That was the feedback I got one time. I don't even know what to do. Like, well, sorry. I mean, so with that said, if you would like due dates sooner than that, if you want me to put you on a different grading schedule, please let me know. I will put you on a different, I can make it harder. Let's make it harder. No, I put everything at the end because it wasn't that long ago that I was a grad student myself. 2018 is whenever I finished a postdoctoral master's in clinical psychopharmacology. And we had the same format of classes that you guys have, where we're meeting online once a week and then doing all kinds of stuff in between. And I remember feeling like I was in over my head a lot, just because guess what? There's life completely outside of just this class. And probably most of y'all are taking more than one class, right? And so, and probably trying to work and try to have a life, have family, trying to sleep, whatever that is. Forget about hobbies. Your hobby this semester is probably going to be using the DSM-5 TR, text revision, as a treatment for insomnia. Okay. It is very effective for that, by the way. So if you ever can't sleep at night, just crack open your DSM-5 and start reading, and it will put you right to sleep. No prescription necessary. Okay. It won't keep you asleep because you probably have, start dreaming about diagnosing and all kinds of stuff. But with that said, all of your stuff is due at the end of the class. I would encourage you to not wait until the last week because it can be very overwhelming. On top of that, please note that I can't, like that the November 16th, 12 p.m. noon, that is 100% the cutoff, and I won't be able to open anything up after that because your grades are due like immediately thereafter. Okay. And so do me a favor, at least, and get everything done that you want to get done before then. If not, do yourself a favor and get it all done sooner than that, to where you're not fighting at the end of the class there trying to sneak stuff in. Not that it's possible to sneak stuff in anyway, but my hope is that you will follow along with the weekly quizzes as they're due, or I'm sorry, as the week concludes, and so that except for week 1, which hopefully you've already completed, the rest of them you'll be able to kind of complete as you go. And sometimes life happens, folks, and that's completely okay. We're going to work on self-compassion this semester because y'all are hard on yourselves. I'm telling you, I love grad students because y'all, I mean, not because you're hard on yourselves, but y'all are really here to learn, and you really genuinely want to know what you don't know. And you're not just doing this to get a degree. You're doing this because you're trying to find meaning in life. And that's the coolest thing in the world, is to be a professor and facilitate that. I promise you, it really is. I am here to help facilitate that in any way possible because, like you, I find a lot of meaning in helping people. The knowledge that you'll gain through this class is going to help so many kids and parents. I'm telling you, because knowledge really is power here. And while there are limitations, we can take the shame out of all this stuff and make it therapeutic. And you're here because you can do that well. You wouldn't be here if that weren't true. I promise. And so when you're feeling tired, when you're feeling like, should I even be doing this? Please know that you wouldn't be here if you weren't. Um, you're here because you are gonna be a super duper helpful and healing counselor someday. And it begins by just running this marathon, because it is a marathon. Okay. Um, don't let your grades eat you up and make you anxious. Now, it's easy for a professor to say that, right? Because, like, I'm not getting grades. But if you focus more on learning, and even if you have to tailor each week to something that's more along the lines of what you're interested in, I would rather you do that than make 100 in this class and just kind of get through it. Okay. I would rather you make a C and learn a lot than make an A and just kind of, go through the motion. I can tell you is I made 3 C's in grad school, and 2 of them were in my psychopathology courses, and the other one was in neuropsych. And so I'm a neuropsychologist now teaching psychopathology. And it's not because I didn't try hard in those classes. Honestly, it's because I decided along the way to focus on some of the topics that I cared the most about, um, while sacrificing a little bit of my grade for that. And that was okay. And sometimes that's okay. Um, but I can also tell you too, something like 95, 97% people in my classes make A's. So basically, as long as you continue like blinking and breathing and you are putting effort in this class, these are these exams and quizzes are as easy as it gets. Okay. I give you multiple chances to take it because I'm not trying to fool anybody or see how. I'm not trying to test and measure how good you are at taking tests. I'm here to try to facilitate your learning. Okay. I've had that feedback before too, that that my classes are too easy. So again, if you would like to have a harder class, you just feel free to email me and we will make it harder for you. Okay. Um, but even still, I'm not going to be reading 30-page papers. So if that's something you want to do, feel free to do that on your own time, and maybe you can pay me privately and I'll read it. Just kidding. I don't think that's ethical. I don't think I can take money like that. Maybe I can. I just can't give you grades for it. I don't know. We're not going to find out. All right. So, who has started reading any of the neurodevelopmental disorder sections? Anybody? Awesome. And is it Monique? Is that right? Awesome. Monique, I'm so sorry that it sounded more exciting than what it really was already. But here's the thing. So neurodevelopmental disorders is so fundamental to this class that if you're going to read the DSM-5 at all for this class, spend the most time reading that section, because you won't understand childhood anxiety or childhood OCD, eating disorders or substance use or PTSD and all that stuff, or depression, unless you understand the neurodevelopmental disorders first. That's why we spend a few weeks on this. Okay. Like up to, I think the first 3 weeks here, we're going to be spending primarily on neurodevelopmental disorders, which I'm excited about because I have ADHD. And I don't say that lightly, as if everybody, on the planet these days, from TikTok to, Instagram, Everybody has ADHD is what everybody's saying. So, but I actually have ADHD and was diagnosed before it became cool. I still don't think it's particularly cool to have ADHD, but I can tell you ADHD is near and dear to my heart. So much so that I am in all my free time, whatever that is, uh, I'm writing a book about ADHD, autism, OCD, Tourette's, and bipolar. And yeah, that's it. And all of those topics and how those all relate, particularly to from a diagnostic standpoint, all the way through uh, what's the actual science and neuroscience have to say about those being discrete diagnoses. Because our brains do not care about all these labels. They don't. Your brain does not know the difference, or anybody's brain. My brain doesn't know the difference between ADHD and OCD. Promise. I've been diagnosed with both. That's because it comes from the same place. We're going to talk about a lot of the frontal lobe in this class, so much so that you'll probably just only like 10 years from now, you'll be like, oh, I remember Dr. Armstrong, frontal lobe. That's what you're going to say. You're going to say, yeah, Dr. Armstrong, we talked about the frontal lobe like literally every class. The good news is there's a lot to talk about the frontal lobe, so it's not going to be just like frontal lobe, frontal lobe, frontal lobe. There's actually a lot more to it than that. But as it relates to neurodevelopment, you will soon find out that the frontal lobe is an understanding its development in relation to injuries and stress, and even like I would say like trauma, genetic factors. All of that is essential information to understand and to know, even with adult psychopathology, because we're talking about really and truly how the brain regulates emotions, regulates its thoughts and behaviors, and the development of those functions in response or in line with the context, which is the environment. Okay. All right. So if you kind of going back real quick to the quizzes, if you haven't finished week one quiz, please get that done as soon as you can. It's not turned off or anything like that. You're not going to get a bad grade. I have to submit to the registrar's office the attendance. And if you, not that they're going to kick you out of class or anything like that, I think they just show up to your house in the middle of the night or something like that. I'm not really sure. They're kind of like the mafia, the registrar's office. You just kind of want to be on their good side. Okay. So try to get that week one quiz so I can take attendance. And then from there on out, just try to get your weekly quizzes complete as we go. Any questions about assignments, reading, what you're going to be doing in this class, the 30-page paper that's due, anything like that? Usually this is where I get somebody that's like half asleep and they say, whoa, 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 whoa. When's the 30-page paper due? Yeah. For that person, I usually tell them it's due next week. Okay, no questions. All right. Well, let's talk about the brain a little bit. By the way, I try to do my best to kind of talk and look at the chat. So if I don't respond real quick, it's not because I don't care. It's just because it's not always like popping up in front of me. Let's see. Oh yeah, the Shidra, the APA format, all that stuff. That's rough. All right. That's why if you do your doctorate, by the way, you don't really even have to learn the APA stuff because you're going to end up paying somebody like $1,000 to write it to fix all your APA. Like that's what everybody does. Yeah. I mean, I learned the APA, but then like realized after the fact that I could have just not learned it and then paid this person $1,000 anyway because they were going to correct all my errors whenever I did my dissertation. So don't be me, actually learn it. Also, Chat GPT. Let's talk about that real quick. Not that there's a paper in this class, but I'm all for using technology to make our lives easier. And I would encourage you, if you haven't ever explored Chat GPT, to check it out because it kind of is going to be like the future. I would also encourage you not to just use it to write papers for you, but do try to creatively use it to help you write papers and maybe give you examples of what a decent paper would look like. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I know there's like a lot of buzz about it. It's like, everybody's using it, but the truth is we're not going to be able to stop it. We might as well kind of just help y'all use it effectively. It's like using Wikipedia. Okay. All right. So let's go to our course here and talk just a little bit about the brain. Get this. I'm going to share my screen and then we'll get going. All right. Does everybody know what the brain is? Good. We got step 1 down. There we go. All right. See, you're learning something already. We've got a brain. Step 2, the brain is not fully developed. In case you're following along, I'm on page 12 or number 12 slide of week 1 PowerPoint slides. Okay. What we're looking at here is a graph of the frontal lobe and its development, or the synaptic density. Just so you know what synaptic density is literally the connections between neurons. So like your brain cells are called neurons, and those connections, they're not directly connected, but the connections that they have, the chemical connections, they grow little branches out to each other. And the density or the thickness of the gray matter and all of that is what we're looking at here, and it changes over a lifetime. So when you're born, you don't have a lot of thickness because basically those branches grow in response to learning. So after this class, you will have not only a thicker skull, but also I'm just kidding. That was a joke. Thicker skull. You'll have the thicker gray matter. Okay. And if we could measure it, that would actually be a pretty cool way to see how much you've learned. And I think probably eventually we'll get there where even after your therapy session that you do with a client, you'll be able to, wave like an iPhone over their head and be like, look at this, check it out. Look how much thicker your gray cortex is. Look how successful today's therapy was. That is an indication of learning. Learning takes place in the gray matter and the connections there, and you have different periods of time of life that learning takes place at a much more rapid rate. And it makes sense because like those very first few years, as you can see, the synaptic density takes off like a rocket, right? And then especially between birth and the first year, there's a lot of stuff that has to happen. Because you go from literally being in the womb with everything's just taken care of to like having to be a person. That's a big leap. From there, if you remember right, if you've taken lifespan development, your brain develops back to front, right? So the back is not called the back up the back lobe, although it should be called the back lobe. It's called the occipital lobe for whatever reason. But we've got a frontal lobe, which doesn't make sense. But from back to front, your brain is developing. And what that means is literally the connections between those neurons are developing and strengthening. And the white matter, or the inside of your brain, the wires themselves that connect the neurons, are also strengthening. And so what we call that is the myelination, or the maturation of your myelin, of your neurons, or I'm sorry, your axons. Real quick, if you're like, whoa, this dude's saying a bunch of weird words, neurons, axons, what is this class? All right, don't worry, we're going to get there. Just sit back, relax, and pretend like you already know, because I promise we will cover it all in more depth. But a neuron is your actual brain cell. Think of it as like the computer, and each brain cell is like a little tiny computer. From it, you've got dendrites, which look like little roots, and those connect to other neurons, and they receive messages. They don't send messages, they receive them. Then on that same neuron, you have what's called an axon, and that axon looks like a real big, thick root, and it's real long, and it's what sends messages. All right, so dendrites receive messages, axons send messages, and dendrites connect to axons. It makes sense logically. All right, those connections are what we're looking at here with this graph, where those first few years is like a rocket, and then you can see what happens is we get the prefrontal cortex that ramps up between year 1 and year 3.5, basically, right? And what is that time called? Does anybody remember that time between year 1 and the terrific twos and tremendous threes, or something like that, if I remember right. Does anybody have a 2 and a 3-year-old at home? I have some friends that do have one. So if you'd like to spend some time around them, you can. I'm sure they would love to have a babysitter if you need some direct experience with that. I have a 6 and a 9-year-old at home. And I can tell you, I'm very thankful that we are out of the terrific and tumultuous 2s and 3s, because, folks, those are the hard times. Okay. There's 2 times in life that are kind of hard. It's the wonderful 2s and 3s and the terrific teen years. Okay. See where this little line goes way down? Yep. That's because the teens, just like the toddlers, their brains are trying to make a big jump in independence. And in order to do that, it has to get the world to respond to it and teach it what it doesn't know. Yeah. So, for example, kids that are between 2 and 3, if I remember correctly, I'll use my son as an example. My son, one morning, would not eat his breakfast. That's my son in the background, by the way, if you can hear him. It's almost bedtime. One morning would not eat his breakfast, and he was like 2.5 or something like that, just kind of barely talking. And I remember saying, I was just like, all right, so what do you want? It's like, he's like, I don't want to eat anything. And eventually I was like, okay. I was like, how about chocolate cake? And I remember him looking me dead in the eyes and just saying, no, like, to chocolate cake. And I'm telling you this story because his brain, along with teens' brains, are designed in such a way to force their environment, their caretakers, to respond to opposition. Yeah. It's built into their brain. It's not just attitude. It's literally built into their brain because what they're doing is they're eliciting instruction and direction from their environment, their caretakers, because otherwise they would not learn how to self-regulate. Teens are the same way, except from a higher order standpoint, like judgment standpoint, long-term decision planning, such that you could tell a teen, if you're a parent, you like, here's $1 million, and that teen's going to roll their eyes. We're like, I don't want your $1 million, right? They're going to do that because their brain is neurologically wired to push back. And the reason why that happens is because the frontal lobe depends on the environment to shape it. And one of its primary jobs is stress tolerance. Okay. All right. So, with that said, let's talk a little bit about the different things that affect development. Let's see if I can get there. Where am I at? All right, here we go. So, what we know is that the brain develops back to front, and the frontal lobe does not stop developing until you're about 25. Okay. Kind of the running joke is it's not really a joke, but it sounds like one. Women or biological females, their frontal lobes tend to finish developing between like the late teens, early 20s. And for biological males, our brains, they used to say age 25, and then they pushed it back to 30. And now there's just like, we're not really sure if male frontal lobes ever fully develop. That sounds like a joke, but it's really not a joke. It's actually kind of in line with science. So at least men, we've got that going for us. And sorry to break, be the bearer of bad news there, but we can blame it on our brains, I guess. With that being said, the frontal lobe, you can think of it this way, or the brain in general. When or at conception, there's a genetic blueprint that's given from mom and dad, right? That genetic blueprint is just a blueprint. It is literally just the lump of clay with some basic fundamental like design to it that sorry, my daughter just got home too. With that fundamental design, it requires input from the environment to shape it. When I say input, I'm talking about learning, but also physical experience. So like if you have a genetic, predisposition for a completely healthy brain, if you had a brain injury at birth, it would cause a different developmental trajectory for that same brain, even though we had the perfect genetic makeup. What I can tell you is that essentially there's no such thing as a perfect genetic makeup, and that everybody has risk for different things. And so when you add those genetic risk factors to anything that affects the brain during childhood and adolescence, what the result of that is a different developmental trajectory that otherwise that person would have been on. And that's specifically true for the frontal lobe and emotional regulation, psychological mindedness, and even cognitive development. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to pause this right there because that's probably enough for tonight, because I can feel some of y'all's eyes going cross-eyed, even though I can't see some of y'all's eyes. But each week my hope is for us to dive a little bit deeper into the topics at hand. And for the next few weeks here, anyway, we're going to talk a lot about ADHD, how to diagnose that. You're going to get a sneak peek at my upcoming conference presentation that I'm doing this Friday on advanced assessment of ADHD. So I'll be sure to go over some of that with y'all next Monday as well. So if for some reason you can't make it to these classes, that's completely okay. You're just going to fail the class. I'm just kidding. As a joke. Nobody's laughing at my jokes. That's fine. Hey guys, listen. The only way you're going to fail this class is if you don't laugh at my jokes. All right. That's how you get an F. F. A stands for laughter. All right. With that said, thanks for the laughing emoji. Everybody's sending me laughing emojis right now. That's awesome. At least y'all are awake. So next week, though, we will cover that in more detail. And then, but please, if you get a chance, please, when you come to class, be ready to talk and ask questions. Think about the stuff that, all the questions that you've always wanted to know, especially as it relates to like, well, what does this really look like in the real world? How would I approach this in the real world? That's the stuff that I really want to hone in on. But if we end up not having questions from you guys, we'll just practice how to be silent in therapy, and we'll all just awkwardly stare at each other and see how long we can do that. Sound good? Any question? That was a joke. I mean, kind of. Any questions, concerns? All right. Well, welcome to the semester. You should, the next party you go to and people ask you what you do, you say, well, I'm taking child and adolescent psychopathology. Yeah. That's a good way to stop a conversation dead in its tracks. Okay? Don't talk about this stuff at parties. That's rule number one, especially if it's like a family party, because then, all right, I'm gonna give you one more tip and we'll be done. Your family has probably already started asking you questions about like, hey, what does this dream mean? That kind of stuff, right? So you can respond in two ways. One, you can tell them I don't work for free. Okay. Or if they tell you a dream, you know what you can do? Just make something up as if you know what you're talking about, but don't tell them that you're just making it up. Okay. Just let them think whatever you just interpret it, just come up with something just wild and just do a lot of like head nodding, like, oh, wow, like that. And then just tell them an answer, be like, oh, yeah, that dream means blah, 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 blah. And then walk away. I'm telling you, they'll never ask you to interpret their dreams again. Okay. All right. Well, y'all have a great night, and we will see y'all next week. Okay. All right. Take care.